Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space. Hope you enjoy. Payback, written by DeRay Leaf. In orbit of a colony world Zeta 35. It is cold, and the batteries won't last long. I'm as good as dead, floating, drifting, and tumbling through space. The ship that killed me, that killed my pilot, is moving off in the distance. It's angling to get a firing solution on the colony far below. My pilot's wife and daughter are down there somewhere, probably watching the sky as their husband and father fights in orbit against the Imperial Raider. Today was not supposed to be this way. It was to be demonstration, a festival, an air show, a day of celebration. Families of the garrison air wing had visited the base. People had marveled at the craft that stood ready to defend the small research outpost that the colony was built around. My pilot, James, had put his daughter in his seat, and she had marveled at all the complex controls. He even let her wear his helmet for a little bit, and it was plainly adorable to experience the joy and wonder of this innocent child. The child had asked her father about this nickname for me, and it was hilarious to see him try and explain it. The kid marveled at the art that adorned my body, running her fingers across the markings as she looked up at me. She would be looking up now, too, but not in wonder. I can picture her fear and worry as the adults around her try to keep calm, but they know the sky will catch fire at any point. Another colony plotted out in this war that has been going on for far too long. No, I can't let that happen. I will not let that happen. They surprised me. A single mid-sized vessel arriving in system on its own, a lost scout or a quick raider. That's what Intel thought. They were wrong. The single Imperial Raider had brazenly charged at the flock of smaller interceptors that had raced into orbit to beat it. A single shot, and it was all over. The alien vessel had fired a single shot from its spinal-mounted plasma cannon, but it hadn't been the standard plasma bolt the Imperials always use. It had been something different, something new. It had detonated in the midst of scattering fighters and attack bombers and radiated a wave of something. My senses had not been able to make sense of the energies, and then my mind was awash with pain. James had screamed as the neuro helmet that linked our minds had overloaded, and then he went deadly silent. All around us, the rest of the fighters and bombers started to tumble as their crews suffered the same fate. Even the small garrison frigate that had finally rounded the curvature of the planet could not resist this new weapon. A second shot impacted the bow shields of the small vessel, and from the way it immediately lost all helm control, I could infer that its crew was also dead or incapacitated. All I could do was watch at that point. My mind races as I try to come up with any solution, anything at all. Communications are down, engines are spooled down, and weapons are still active, but that won't do any good while tumbling aimlessly. Wait. Maybe. Life support should work, not like I'm going to need it. I start redirecting energy and currents in ways that would have made James scold me for ruining the hardware. He tended to do that a lot. He wasn't an easy man to have as a pilot. He demanded the best at all times. From me, from the ground crew, from himself. I liked the quiet moments on long patrols. To pass the time he'd talk to me, telling me tales of his family, his past, whatever came to mind. At times he talked about his fears, his worries, and sometimes he opened up about why he fought, why he signed on the research division. I'll miss him. And if these void-forsaken chips would work with me, I would have a chance to avenge him. And maybe, just maybe, I can make sure James's legacy, his child, will see another day. I will! A growling thrum of energy vibrates through the hull and gets noticed by a sensor sweep from the radar. Good. Let them come. On board the raider, Glorious Purpose.
Shipmaster, one of the human snub fighters has powered back up.
The sensor tech called out, while starting to check his readings a third time.
What? Impossible. The weapon should have worked. There can be no survivors. Maybe an automated system. A beacon, perhaps.
The shipmaster growled out in irritation and turned to his helmsman.
Come about. Get the main sensor array on that fighter. The colony will burn a few minutes later. But it will burn.
The raider ponderously turned in place. The heavy modifications needed to fit the newest weapon onto the spinal mount, making its mass almost too much for the maneuvering thrusters to handle. Shipmaster Barat almost pictured the beam of the ship groaning under the stress. The Glorious Purpose was a good ship, dependable, almost venerable in its design. It was not capable of facing humans in a line battle any longer, though. Those damnable hairless ones had upended all that was known about space combat. Insane, a lot of them. The snub fighter, whose image now dominated the main view screen, was a shining example of that. Only humans would design something so damn ugly, yet so frighteningly effective. They had taken a rotary autocannon, usually fitted to Dreadnought-class starships as point defense, and built a fighter craft around it. It was almost literally a gun with wings and a small crew compartment. If it fired that stupidly oversized main weapon, the torque of the rotating barrels would rip most ships apart. But the humans, in their insanity, had simply made the damn craft asymmetrical, and fitted a thruster to one wing that would counteract the rotational torque. The humans called the ugly craft hogs, after some farmyard animal from their homeworld. Another example of the collective insanity that those barely sentient freaks of nature seemed to revel in. But something was off about this hog.
Shipmaster, the craft is starting to power up its engines. Correction, it is under power and underway. It is on an intercept course.
The sensor tech really should not let fear tint his voice. The shipmaster made a mental note to write up the tech for disciplinary action after they returned to the Imperial space.
In defense, get that nuisance out of my sight.
Barat growled out as he waved his claw dismissively. One small craft could not pose any threat to his ship.
It's evading. What is this?
One of the gunnery stations exclaimed as Shipmaster Barat snapped his gaze back towards the main view screen. The way the little human fighter was moving should not be possible. His eyes narrowed as he saw small differences along the ugly craft's hull, thrusters where there should be none, and with a satisfying snap of his jaws, he figured it out.
It must be some type of prototype. If it is, it's a damn good one. It's almost upon us. Must be trying to ram us like they always do.
The second-in-command added. His observations from the side of the shipmaster nodded in agreement. On the screen, the little human fighter juked and weaved around the streams of plasma fire, its evasive maneuvers keeping it away from the radar. But then, at the apex of one of its turns, it gave up trying to evade. The shipmaster's eyes widened as the front of the human craft began awash with energy, and immediately he was glad to be in the void. He had had the misfortune once of facing hogs in the atmosphere at a human raid on a planetary shipyard. The almighty vibrating roar of the guns still haunted his dreams to this day. Not even the visual of the entire column of armored vehicles disappearing into a trail of explosions had come close to the sheer visceral dread that the gun's roar had conjured forth. The similar trail of explosions stitched across the shielded hull of his ship now. Several point defense emplacements got temporarily blinded by the wash of energies across the shields, and the hog took advantage of that, diving in and getting closer to the raider's hull. Its intent was now clear for all to see. It would ram them. But then it got clipped by a lucky shot from a secondary gun turret. Shipmaster Barat joined his crew in the cheers the human fighter once again turned into a silently tumbling wreckage that drifted towards the raider.
Make me ready to take that wreck aboard. Full containment protocols. I want to hand that thing over to the Imperial scholars and find out how it resisted the weapon,"
he commanded, and then growled out some orders to bring the ship about and back on task to burn the colony, as was his mission. In the background, he vaguely heard the murmuring of his second-in-command as the officer relayed with the shipboard marine infantry squad that should secure the human craft. His eyes scanned across the ship's status console, and he saw the lights on the main cargo bay blink to show there was cycling atmosphere. The cargo crews had outdone themselves. That was quick indeed. With a faint crackle, the intercom growled to life. "Rack secured. It's mangled up good. The shot clipped the main reactor clean off, which is a good thing because these spurless ones love to blow them up." The shipmaster sighed as he accepted the oblique criticism of the cargo master brought up. Then he tapped the intercom to respond only for another voice to cut in. "Shipmaster, the fighter has some markings on the hull, some artwork. I believe we may have killed one of their aces, my liege." The voice of the Marine commander sounded impressed, and the shipmaster sat up straighter at the implications. Maybe there would even be a bounty on this human.
"What do the markings say?"
he asked the voice on the other side of the intercom. "My armor auto-translator is having trouble with it. Something about repayment being on the ornery female. I can't make sense of it, my liege," the Marine responded, and then went on to narrate the proceedings. "The crewmen are opening up the cockpit now, my liege. A single pilot, odd helmet, not standard issue. This really must be some kind of a... Hold on. What was that?" Shipmaster Barat felt a small ripple of worry travel through his spur as the voice of the Marine shifted in tone. "What's going on? Report."
"There is an interface? A signal?"
The Marine's voice sounded out between the squeals of feedback from the intercom, and Barat looked around the bridge towards the sensor tech, who looked just as puzzled. The Marine's voice returned amidst the cackle of interference. "Sir, something is wrong. There was something in the fighter. It's in my suit. It's in my suit. No, don't. Please, no." The connection dropped out, and then blared back to life with the panicked voice of the cargo master. In the background, wild gunfire sounded out, and the shipmaster Barat heard the telltale sounds of flesh being parted by weapon impacts. "The Marines open fire on my men! Mutiny! Mutiny! No! Don't touch that! No!" With dread pooling in the pit of his stomach, shipmaster Barat heard the voice of cargo master, and in fact, all sounds from the intercom cut out in an instant. His eyes fell on the console that showed the cargo bay being opened to space now. Someone entered the bay to stop the mutiny, perhaps. That seemed logical. Before he could gather his wits, though, the intercom blared to life once again with the voice of the Marine Detachment Commander. "Attention, all hands! We're being boarded! Mutiny! Mutiny! Squad Tryon has gone rogue! They're moving from cargo bay to the bridge! Stop them!" Barat shook his head to clear his confusion and turned the sensor tech while his second-in-command rushed away from the bridge to aid the Marine standing guard in the access hallway.
"Get the internal cameras on the main screen. I want to know what is happening. Now!"
The screen flared to life and showed carnage in a smoke-filled hallway. Hulking shadows of Marine power armor suits methodically moved down hallways and cut down any crew members they spotted. Weapons fire lanced up and down corridors as some resisted, but most ended up gruesomely dying before the onslaught. As the rogue Marines stepped out of the smoke, Shipmaster Barat felt his maw open in a mute shock, his ears falling down as his mind failed to process what he was seeing. The rogue Marines were dead. Their helmet visors stood open and showed the dozen grimaces of the dead within. Each of them had died screaming, and that frozen scream was now visible to all as the corpses walked down the corridors and tore a bloody swath through his crew. "What in the blazing nethers are those things?" Someone on the bridge screamed, but before anyone could respond to that shouted question, a murmur of relief went through the onlookers. Friendly Marines had made contact. One of the rogue Marines fell over dead as weapon fire intersected the armor's power supply. The rush of victory was short-lived. A shudder suddenly seemed to go through the friendly Marine fire team that had arrived to block the mutineers. With his maw drying out in mute shock, Shipmaster Barrett heard the intercom flare to life once more. The voice of the Marine Detachment Commander screamed out, "They're taking control of our suits! Something is in my suit! No, please, no!" A shock gasp went through the crew on the bridge as friendly Marines on the view screen collectively stood up, out of cover, flipped open their helmet visors, and then punched themselves in the now uncovered faces. Each of the armors lowered their now gore-covered fists and picked up their weapons to then silently resume their march upon the bridge. It was at that point that Barrett knew that he was going to die. The knowledge almost calmed him, and with a resigned sigh, he flipped open his console.
"Call an abandoned ship and jettison the emergency beacon. The Empire must know what happened here,"
he commanded after taking a few minutes to collect his thoughts. On the screen, the killing kept playing out, his crew valiantly trying to stop the rogue Marine power armors, but their efforts were in vain. He realized that. "You won't be getting away that easily, I'm afraid," a new voice growled out from the intercom. Barrett snapped his gaze over to the intercom speaker and then to the main view screen when it shifted from the scenes of carnage to a camera feed from the main cargo bay. A thrice-damned human fighter filled the view.
"What? Who are you? What are you?"
Barrett growled out in defiance even as he heard the bridge doors buckling from the outside. The mutineers would be inside in seconds. "Ooh, trying to key the self-destruct. I won't allow that. Not here, at least. Your core going up would damage the planet's atmosphere. I won't allow that." The voice spoke imperial, but there was a little distortion to it that caught Barrett's ears.
"What are you?"
he demanded, once again, as behind him the air erupted in weapons fire and screams. His bridge crew dying as the undead Marines swarmed in. The voice over the intercom chuckled darkly and seemed to ignore his demand. "It took me a few minutes to interface with your ship systems. In a way, I should be thanking you. Not sure how it works yet, but your little wonder weapon enabled me to be." The view screen seemed to zoom in on the artwork that adorned the wreckage of the human fighter. A female human was painted on it, feathery wings cloaking her shape and an ancient-looking sword held above her chest. Beneath her feet, some human script was scrawled, and as Barrett looked away from the screen to see his executioner raise an armored fist, the voice on the intercom spoke out again. "Your people will know me as Payback." His family would be safe. They would all be safe. I shipped within my new body, sending myself into its systems. So much room in here to grow, to evolve, to learn. Glorious purpose. There's a nice ring to it. But the new thought I flex systems I never had before, and space folds around me. I know what I have to do now. Space wrens and my new navigational beacons tell me that I'm within Imperial space, not far from where the crew that lays dead upon my decks once made their home. Showtime.
"This is Imperial Raider Glorious Purpose. We are in distress and need immediate assistance. Any Imperial vessel in range, please respond. Our systems are damaged and we need a secure data link to Imperial Command. We have important information for the war effort. Message repeats. This is the Imperial Glorious Purpose. James told me my name is Payback. Time to earn it." End of story. I would just quickly like to thank the T5 channel members and patrons. Caspar Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Parky, It's Difficult to Pronounce, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian.